Hello and welcome into the Birds of the Round Table for another Tuesday night. What are we going to talk about until the NFL draft episode of the show? I am your host, Shane Haff. Give me a follow on Twitter at Shane Haff NFL. Joined by Dives. Give him a follow on Twitter at Mr. Crockpot. Dives, how are you doing tonight?
Doing well, man. April 1st, it's officially draft season. Got a lot to talk about.
Absolutely. Also joined by David. Give him a follow on Twitter at PHL Eagle News. David, how are you doing?
Doing well, man. Ready to get into discussing what's left of the Eagles' offseason plans and no April Fool's jokes. None. Nobody do that. No jokes.
Maybe one. No, I'm just kidding. And we are missing Ryan tonight. He heard that Kenny Gainwell was going to be signing autographs in Pittsburgh this evening, and so he headed over to try to get a jersey. Okay, that's the one. That's the one. Now, Ryan had something come up. He's just not here this evening, but we've got you guys covered. We're going to get to a few different topics, and then we're going to round it out talking about some favorite day 2 and day 3 targets for the Eagles as we make that final push to the draft, which is, like 3 weeks away? Just a little over 3 weeks away at this point. But before we get into the main topics of the show, we do have to acknowledge a joke that should be an April Fool's joke, but is not. And that is the bunch of pansy coaches in the NFL trying to band together to get the Tush push taken out, banned. Apparently they were unable to get the votes and unwilling to taste defeat. And so they just pulled that from the table. So I just wanted to open the floor. And if anybody wanted to make fun of all these coward coaches that are afraid of the Eagles QB sneak, if anybody wants to jump on that.
It's a bunch of scared poverty coaches and franchises that are just trying to find one thing to take away from the Philadelphia Eagles. Just like you guys will echo, I don't really have much to say on it, but it has nothing to do with player safety. You saw all the interviews. It's a joke. It's a flat out joke. I'll throw it to you, David.
Yeah, I agree with you. I wish they just come out and say what it really is. They don't like the way it looks. They don't like the aesthetics of it. They don't like the Eagles' dominance of it, suggesting that they were looking into it from a different perspective since there hasn't been injuries yet. They were saying we're going to do it to prevent injuries because it could cause an injury. Every snap in the NFL can cause an injury. I mean, it's absurd. It's ludicrous. There's really no excuse for it other than they just don't like it. They don't like any part of it, the aesthetics of it. I don't like a quarterback throwing the ball out of bounds every time a defender's in his face either. But guess what? That's part of the game as well. So it is a joke, but it is what it is. Eventually, they'll probably get rid of it, but not today.
I do like the whole, it could cause injuries, and we're really concerned about player safety, while also announcing right after that, by the way, we're going to move touchbacks to the 35. So more kickoff returns happen because, those add a lot to the game, and especially injuries for players. And by the way, we're also going to allow flexing games to Thursday night, so teams can potentially have 2 Thursday night games now. And we're going to add an 18th game because we're really concerned about player safety. But I just think it's funny, especially the Sean McDermott of it all, where he's deeply concerned about player safety, but he ran it 5 times in the AFC Championship game. And by the way, brother, go watch the tape of your poor defensive effort, Mr. Defensive Head Coach who fired his DC a year or 2 ago, and figure out why the Chiefs scored 30 on you. The only time they did it all season, maybe instead of whining about a play from a team you never even saw all season long. So it's just funny.
It's going to get banned, and it's just the NFL, the NBA, as we've said on off here, everything's just so soft today. It's not the sport I fell in love with. Just go to and touch already. Just do it. Just bite the bullet now.
We looked this stat up before we started the show, so you guys don't answer, but we'll pause for a second to let those who are playing along at home. What do you think the Eagles' success rate on QB sneaks with 1 yard to go was this season? I'll pause for a second. You can think your number. Maybe you want to drop one in the chat. So the actual success rate, the percentage of the time the Eagles converted a first down with the QB sneak, with 1 yard or less to go was 80%. We had a guess of 87% here. It was 80%. Now, the same question, but for in 2021, before the Eagles had the tush push, what do you think that percentage was? It was 93%. So, yeah, getting rid of the tush push is totally going to make the Eagles QB sneaking irrelevant. I really think they're just honestly, I honestly think what will happen if the tush push gets banned is the Eagles are just going to continue to run it at an extraordinarily high rate and convert it nearly as often as they were before. I really don't know that the pushing adds that much, but I think we're going to see, because I do think Roger Goodell's going to whip up the votes that he wants, because it sounded pretty clear he wanted this out of the game. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's banned in May when they come back to it again. But honestly, I almost hope it is, and the Eagles just do it anyways next season without the pushing, and it's no difference. And so everybody can just acknowledge that they were whining about the wrong things.
Yeah, they don't have the personnel to match the Eagles. That's just what it is. And what's the most frustrating piece of all this is we're probably going to be hearing about it every year for the foreseeable future. If it does not go through, they're probably going to find another reason to keep this narrative rolling.
Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts on the tush push and the cowards that want to ban it before we get into the rest of the show?
No.
All right. So we got a few questions here that we want to run through tonight, and it's going to lead into some favorite day 2 and day 3 draft targets. But let's start with the first one. David, in your opinion, this can be a specific player, it can be a position group, whatever. You can interpret this however you want, which I'm assuming was Dibe's intent, because he's going to say something about like an offensive coach. I don't know. What is the biggest question mark on the Eagles heading into the draft right now?
I think their biggest question mark, because I believe it's a question in their mind as well, is Dallas Goedert and the tight end position. I don't think they have any idea what they're going to do with that. They would like to extend it, but at the same time, you're extending somebody who's 30 years old, has missed an average of 5-6 games a season, but he's also an integral part of their offense. When he's on the field, they run at something like 1.5 yards more per clip. I mean, he is a difference maker, especially in the run game. So they want to save money, and I don't really know the cap breakdown. Some people have told me they don't save money unless it's a post-June trade, or they take a big cap hit otherwise. I'm really not sure how that breaks down, but when Howie was interviewed about it today, he made it sound like that it's very much on the table and that he was very much confused, that all options are still open. Sounds like they're listening to trades in regards to him. And if Goddard doesn't want to play on the 1-year deal, I would say he is going to be gone, and then drafting a tight end becomes paramount in that draft. I know that they talked about Harrison Bryant as a alternative there, and he has he's shown some okay things, but he's not Dallas Goedert, and it will be a huge need going into the draft, which is something the Eagles very rarely do.
Yeah, I was trying to scramble and find the numbers for Goddard because I know I have him somewhere. It looks like if he is traded pre-June 1st, he would have a $21 million dead cap hit this year. And if they kept him for this season and then let him walk, they would essentially pay a total of like $36 million over that year contract with the bonus and the dead cap. So it's basically, do you want him this year for $15.5 million? Or do you want to move on from him, is essentially what it amounts to. This year with Goddard cost you about $15.5 million. And is he worth that? Probably not, mainly because of the health and things. But in that Super Bowl window, I find it really hard to want to move on from that. But it does seem like it's the direction the Eagles are heading for sure. So, Dibes, what about you? What's your biggest question mark on the Eagles headed into the draft?
I actually was going to go a different route originally, but last weekend I rewatched the Commanders game in the NFC Championship. I watched the Chiefs game in the Super Bowl, and then I watched the Eagles mini movie. And I think this is why. If you watch the Eagles mini movie, especially, one of the biggest things, or at least the big notable I had, was the presence of Nakobe Dean, especially on and off the field, as a leader of that defense. So I'm going to go linebacker. I hope Nakobe Dean gets better soon, because the one thing that I did not like was Oren Burks signing with the Bengals for like $5 million over 2 years. That one stings to me. And if you watch the Eagles mini movie and you watch those 2 games in particular, Oren Burks was terrific. And we'll see if Vic Fangio can find another guy. I'm still not sold on Trot Jr. Like his instincts, ability to fill gaps, all that kind of stuff. But I'm just not sold yet. So for me, linebacker was such a core piece of that 2024 defense with Zach Bond, and how infectious he was on that defense as a leader, and him screaming and rooting for Nakobe, and then Nakobe's presence as a leader. For me, I'm looking at that second spot at linebacker, and I'm curious how that goes, because we have seen Eagles teams in the past get exposed. Sometimes your defense is only as good as your biggest weakness, and we've seen that as Eagles fans with some bad linebacker play, and Oren Burks filled in so well. So for me, I'm just feeling linebacker.
Yeah, that's definitely understandable. Not knowing what you're going to get with Nakobe Dean when he comes back. And like you said, I think everybody was thrilled with the Trotter Jr. pick, but it's a little scary if you got to roll into week 1 with him as your starter. And so we'll see what transpires at linebacker. I'm just going to go a little bit deeper on the defense. And I debated whether to talk about edge rusher or the secondary, but I'll go with the secondary.
That's where I was going to go.
I mean, you lose Darius Slay. You lose your top backup to Darius Slay and Isaiah Rodgers. You lose Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. You lose your top backup safety in Avonte Maddox, because they put Avonte Maddox on the field before Sidney Brown. And so, you're looking at a new starting safety and a new starting cornerback on the boundary. And, we can talk about how great Cooper DeJean was last year and how great Quinyon Mitchell was last year, and they were. And I loved both of those guys in the draft. And I was still surprised that they exceeded my expectations in year 1. And a lot of times you see that drop off from a cornerback. Like, their development's not linear, and they'll have up and down years. And there's also, like, Vic Fangio had so much trust in Slay and Quinyon last year that it allowed them to do so many things with their safeties that you simply can't do if you don't have a corner you trust locking down both sides. And the Eagles don't have that. I mean, I liked bringing in Adoree Jackson. I liked Keely Ringo in his draft. I liked Sidney Brown in his draft. But no matter which way you slice it, 40% of your secondary is a turnover from last year. And so, will the Eagles address either of those positions early? I don't think Keely Ringo, Adoree Jackson prevents you from taking a round 1 cornerback if there's one you like. I definitely don't think Sidney Brown prevents you from taking a round 1 or even a day 2 safety if there's one that you like and competing for that job. And so there's a lot of question marks around the secondary. I'm not necessarily scared of the secondary, but I do think it's one of the biggest question marks on the team right now.
Miss Chris says, I think Howie's going to go after Malachi Starks. He's one of a few guys in this draft that I would be all in on, just a slight trade up if he slips just a little bit. I think he's in my top 5 overall on my big board.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's roll to our next question, which is, which player on the Eagles roster is most likely to get an extension this offseason? Dives, I'll throw this one to you first. Who's your extension candidate?
I'll take the layup. I mean, just the standard Howie move with Cam Jurgens. I feel, he's your classic build through the trenches kind of theme here. You look at Creed Humphrey, the Chiefs center. He was extended at 4 years, $72 million. Tyler Biadasz was a one-time Pro Bowler. He got $10 million per year. Then you got Eric McCoy, who was a 2-time Pro Bowler. He made $12 million annually. I think Cam Jurgens and Howie will find somewhere around 9 to 12 annually per year, probably in that second tier of contracts after Creed Humphrey. We all know how he builds through the trenches. And I think Cam Jurgens is the next one coming.
Yeah, I think I fully expect the Cam Jurgens deal to be done before training camp starts. David, what about you?
If I had to add another one, it's Jordan Davis. Uh, they historically use that 5th year from the first round as part of the extension to extend and to stretch the money out. It's something Howie's done over and over again with the first round draft picks. I think he's like at 12.9 if you just hit him up with the 5th year option. But if you do the extension, you can take a much smaller cap hit and push that thing down the road like he does to make it a smaller percentage of your cap as the years go by. So I'd be surprised if they don't work that out, especially after they lost Milton Williams, and there's really nobody else on the roster who can do what Jordan does right now, playing NT and stuff like that. So he's been very effective. I know fans are disappointed that he doesn't have quite the pass rush that a lot of people expected when he got here, but what he does allows those linebackers behind him to eat all game long, and it's been a pretty effective way to use him, and Fangio uses him perfectly. I'd be shocked if they don't keep him.
All right, yeah, that's a good one as well. I'm gonna go with Reed Blankenship.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think Reed Blankenship is some star player, but I think he's like, I'm ballparking this. I don't have safety rankings, but he's probably like the 16th to 20th best safety in the NFL. You just lost Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. You've got nothing long-term at the position right now. Reed Blankenship's going into the last year of his deal. I think it would be smart for the Eagles to get him in. You got to keep the exciting whites together, right? Like maybe they like feed off of each other. Does Cooper DeJean just not be as good of a player anymore because you take away his partner in crime? I don't know. Let's not find out. Let's get a reasonable extension done for Reed Blankenship and let him keep ending playoff games with game-sealing interceptions. So, okay. Now let's talk about some guys that could be added to the roster. Free agency, the first round of free agency has run its course, but there's still guys out there. There's still people that are going to be signed, and a lot of it might wait till after the draft at this point. But who is a free agent that's left that has you intrigued, David?
I mean, there's really none of them, quite honestly. But if I had to pick one, I guess it's Justin Simmons.
Yeah,
He waited until August last year to sign. It seems like that they kind of have a handshake, wink deal to get through the draft, see if they can get a player, and if they don't, sign him. He's obviously a really good fit in the Fangio defense, and I do think they're desirous of having a veteran player in there. I don't know what you get unless you're going to take a Malachi Starks or somebody really high. I don't know that you're going to get a player that's going to be better than what you have in Sidney Brown. They've invested 2 years in him. I think he can play up to the standard that GJ did this past season. I don't know that he creates the same turnovers, but I do think that he can, man the same position. He hits with the ferociousness. So I think that would be about the only place that would make sense outside of maybe an offensive lineman.
All right. So Justin Simmons, longtime Philadelphia Eagle, who's never actually been a Philadelphia Eagle, has the Fangio connection. We'll see if anything happens there. It would check one of those safety boxes we were talking about. Dibes, what about you? Is there a free agent out there that intrigues you?
Justin Simmons was my guy, but just to kind of double down on safety, let's go Julian Blackmon from the Colts. Versatile defender. I think Blackmon could kind of fit that role. You guys watch more Colts football than I do, but maybe he could be some usefulness to Vic Fangio.
All right. Yeah. I really do think it would make a lot of sense to add a safety because it's still, I mean, any of these moves would fall under things that wouldn't necessarily preclude you from making a draft investment either. So I like that as well. The guy on my radar is Jedrick Wills. He's been a left tackle for the Browns for the last 4-5 seasons. He didn't really play a lot this year for them. He's kind of fallen out of favor there. He's still sitting in free agency. He's a little bit of a smaller tackle, but the Eagles like tackle-sized guards, and the Eagles have a right guard spot that they're not sure what they're going to do with right now. You've got Tyler Steen. You've got Kenyon Green. You also lost Fred Johnson, who is your backup swing tackle. And so a guy like Jedrick Wills, nobody that's sitting in free agency on April 1st is going to sign a big contract. But, I mean, Jedrick Wills was basically benched last year. He's an athletic guy. I just think he would make sense to take a flyer on. It would make sense from his perspective, right? He was a highly drafted guy to come in and work with Stoutland, get the Mekhi Becton treatment, sign a 1-year deal. I think it makes sense for all sides. So I would love to see Jedrick Wills in Midnight Green next year.
Nice.
So those are some free agents that have us intrigued. Now let's transition to the meat and potatoes of the show. We're going to talk about some day 2 and day 3 draft targets that we like for the Eagles. And if you like the draft stuff, stick around because we're going to go live with the Armchair Scouts. Later this evening, we're going to rank our top 10 offensive linemen for the draft. So there'll be lots of O-line talk in that one. But Dibes, you're the draft nut. I'll throw it to you first. Give me a name. Who's a guy that you, not a day 1 guy, but who's a guy you like in day 2 or 3 for the Eagles?
I have so many to talk about, and we have a commenter, Miss Chris is watching. Let us know your thoughts on some of these guys. But David, we want to start with day 2, and then we'll go to day 3.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right. Cool.
Yeah, either way, or just pick one. It doesn't matter. You can just throw a guy out and say where you think he might go.
I think the guy that I would love the most for the Eagles to draft is Andrew Makuba out of Texas. He fits Vic Fangio's defense to a T. If they miss out on Malachi Starks, who I absolutely love, then you get to like Nick Emanwari, who's more of a projection kind of guy. He's got tools for days, but I'm not so sure about the fit. But on day 2, Andrew Makuba, little smaller kind of prospect, but man, he's versatile. He's a ball hawk. He's a guy that I watched a lot of Texas last year, and he always stood out right there with Anthony Hill, a linebacker for them, who'll be draft eligible next year. But Andrew Makuba, for me, is a guy that has to be an Eagle in round 2 or round 3 if the Eagles have that opportunity. So,
all right. So there's another safety name for us. David, who's a guy that you like on outside of day 1 for the Eagles?
I definitely agree with Dibes. Andrew Makuba would have been my first one as well. I mean, he is a very, very good fit for the Eagles defense. He's versatile, plays free safety, strong safety, corner. He reads plays faster than a 5G network. He's an unrelenting work ethic. I mean, he's amazing. But if I had to go to a different guy, I'll go back to the tight end I talked about earlier, and I think that one of the best fits for the Eagles at tight end is Mason Taylor. He moves chains, makes receptions get open. He has yak ability. He wins contested catches. He moves all around the line to create mismatches. I think in the right scheme, he'll flourish, and I think the Eagles scheme is kind of tailor-made for him. He displayed a lot more route ability at the Senior Bowl than he did playing with LSU, which is a really good sign, and I know the Eagles put a lot of stock into that. He had really good hands. I think he had a 1.8% drop rate. So yeah, give me Mason Taylor somewhere in round 2, especially if he's there at 64.
Oh,
all right.
By the way, Miss Chris likes Holland Pierce, David. That's your
Want
guy.
me to go to him? I love this dude.
Go ahead, tell us about him, David.
He's one of my favorite players in the draft, man. He's got the size, the height. He's an anchor. I think he's 6'8", 340. The dude's a human roadblock. He's a mauler. He's a vicious finisher. He keeps the pockets clean. He blows up double teams. He had the 3rd longest arms measured, the 4th largest wingspan. He's a hard worker. He's rising up stock boards. I love that guy. I have been clamoring for him since like December. So I'm glad to see other people liking him as well, because I think he would be a perfect fit at Stoutland University.
All right. Guy I want to throw out is a guy I know Dibes likes, and Dibes is going to talk about him later tonight, in fact.
Ooh.
But Dibes knows my type so well because I sent a message in our Armchair Scouts Discord channel, and I said, I found the offensive lineman that I want the Eagles to draft, and Dibes immediately responds, "It's Charles Grant."
Yes.
And it was Charles Grant. Like, Dibes knows the types of players that I like. But offensive tackle from William and Mary. He did not play football until he was a junior in high school, unranked as a recruit. He's been the left tackle for William and Mary. He's gained 60 pounds since he arrived on campus. And so he's obviously a work in progress. He's obviously going to make like a huge leap in competitiveness from William and Mary to the NFL. And there's a lot that he needs to work on, but he's got a lot of athleticism, a lot of burst off the line. He has super long arms, almost 35-inch arm length. He's a fluid mover. He's just very raw. And he's the guy I want to get enrolled in Stoutland University. Like, I think he could I think there's a chance he can stick outside, even though he's smaller for a tackle because of his arm length. But I just imagine the Eagles bringing this guy in, taking the Jordan Mailata path with him, and then plugging him in as an interior guy a couple of years down the road. I just think he's got a lot of potential if he lands in the right system, and the Eagles are a great place for a athletic, raw offensive lineman to go. So Charles Grant's a name I would love to see in the third round from the Eagles.
I agree with you. He's probably my second favorite offensive lineman in the draft. I absolutely love that guy for all of the reasons you mentioned. He's bigger than people think too. He weighed in at like 311. Some places I saw he was like 298, but he did weigh in at 311. And he's a guy who you could put inside and eventually possibly move outside in a couple of years down the road when Lane, finally hangs up the cleats there. But yeah, great choice, Shane. He is definitely a huge candidate for the Eagles. I can't imagine that they don't love him as well.
Yeah, his official measurements were 6'4" and 7/8, 311 pounds with 34 3/4-inch arms. He didn't do athletic testing, which is a shame because he's super athletic.
Can I throw out one more tackle since we're on the tackle team? We're going to be talking about this more in depth in like 30 minutes, but Ariante Ursary is another tackle that's kind of got my attention on that day two range. 6'6", tons of power, 331 pounds. He plays really well in zone. So if he fits the kind of that Eagles scheme there, and I like his athleticism. I think he used to be a shot put competitor, which I find fun. I love those little fun facts. But I think this guy, as a run blocker, that's his bread and butter. And I feel like with A.J. Dillon and Saquon, like, just put him in Stoutland University, continue to get those yards before contact. Ariante Ursary is a guy that fits the Eagles and what they want to do.
All right. David, you got another name that you want to shout out?
Yeah, I'll go to edge now. I'll go to Central Arkansas with David Walker. He's been kind of a sleeper at the beginning of the process, but he's not one anymore. He's built to be a pass rusher. He has excellent closing speed. He's elusive, has a really good quick burst, high football IQ. He always has a plan to set up the offensive lineman. It's just a fantastic approach. He uses leverages well, and he can pressure the quarterback standing or with the hand in the dirt. He's a punishing tackler. He's got a good motor. Down in Mobile during the Senior Bowl, I asked somebody if I was crazy that he reminded me of Brandon Graham, and they said I might be crazy, but it wasn't because of that. It reminds them of Brandon Graham too. So there's a couple of scouts down there who definitely saw the same thing. So I would think that he would be somebody the Eagles would be interested in. He has a lot of the traits that they normally look for, and it seems like the Eagles in recent years have gone by athleticism and traits more than on-field production. So I really like him as a fit for the Eagles.
Love it. Love it.
All right. Another guy that I really like, and I'm biased, but anytime there's a guy that I think fits from Oklahoma, I'm going to shout him out. And it's Danny Stutzman, linebacker from OU. And I gave him a second round grade, and he's like in the 140s or something on PFF's mock draft simulator. I think it's insane that this guy is outside the consensus top like 125. He's such a good player, and he's athletic, high motor, He's super smart. He's got some tackling issues that he needs to clean up, and he's not the best in man coverage, but I just think he's kind of your quintessential Mike linebacker type, especially if you're going to play a lot of zone, which we know the Eagles like to do. And there's man matching principles in that. You got to figure out how that all works out. But he's just a guy that I think is going to be, honestly, I think he's going to be really good value to somebody on day 3. And I just don't think he should get that far. And so you look at what the Eagles need, the Eagles needing linebackers, and I would love for them to take a flyer on him near the end of day 2.
Every time I watched Oklahoma, you watched him way more than I did, but he just pops. He's always around the football. Such an impressive player, killing Temple over and over and over again. I'm going to go edge linebacker number 1, the consistent guy that I find myself trading back for into the second round is for Braden Swinson, edge rusher out of LSU. Elite production last year. His numbers were right up there with Donovan Ezeraku and Elijah Roberts in terms of pressures and pass rush win rate. He's explosive. He's got some refined hand technique, solid against the run, 6'4", 250 pounds. I think he's got a ton of tools that the Eagles would love. And speaking of tools, the other guy that could be a surprise day 2 selection could be like that Jalix Hunt kind of dude, because he kind of took me for surprise, at least for me, in round 3 last year, is Oluwafemi Oladejo, edge rusher, outside linebacker that has tools for days. Just a bundle of clay for Vic Fangio. Kind of fits that mold of a versatile defender that can move all around a defense, 6'3", long and lean. He's definitely somewhat of a tweener that could be a concern, but he's a solid run defender. He's kind of that guy that is raw, that can get coached up. So keep an eye on Femi Oladejo.
All right. I had a comment here from Miss Chris asking about edge versus defensive end. And edge and defensive end are used pretty interchangeably. It gets hard when you look at like odd fronts, like the 3-4 front, because the defensive end, like the hand in the dirt defensive end, is more of like an interior player, and the linebacker is more of like the rusher. So that's where the term edge rusher came from. And so like typically an edge rusher is like a stand-up linebacker in a 3-4 or a hand in the dirt rusher in a 4-3. And then your defensive tackles for 4-3 and all 3 guys on a 3-down front are kind of considered interior defensive linemen. But the terminology switches based on like which team you're looking at and things. But yeah, when you say edge rusher, you're thinking of just a guy that rushes off the edge, whether it be hand in the dirt or out of a 2-point stance. So, all right, David, you got any more that you want to throw out there?
I'll go to day 3 linebacker from Cal, Teddy Buchanan. He's very instinctive. He's an ultra fast processor. He plays hard. The Eagles alike that he's great in coverage. He's a strong tackler. He maintains gaps. He creates turnovers. He's a sideline to sideline linebacker who pursues the ball. He plays within himself. He does have a few limitations, but he knows how to overcome those. He'll be ready week 1 on special teams. And this is not a comp, but he kind of gives me those Fred Warner vibes. I mean, the guy is an absolute monster. So he's another guy who I think the Eagles would have a lot of interest in on day 3.
All right. Another guy that I am interested in is Dylan Sampson, the running back out of Tennessee. And obviously the Eagles bring in A.J. Dillon, and we don't know health-wise where he's at or what they're going to do there. And, they spent a draft pick last year on Will Shipley. There were some comments that came out of the owners' meetings where it kind of seems like Will Shipley's just more of like a special teams guy. And it's good that he also plays running back in a pinch, but doesn't seem like they're going to count on him a lot. Dylan Sampson's a guy that intrigues me, and I'm always intrigued by fast running backs. And, he was a sprinter in high school. He plays at Tennessee. He's small. He's only 5'8", but he's got elite explosiveness. But one of the things that I really like about him is a lot of times you get those shifty, fast guys, and they just try to beat you to the edge every time. And I think he's got really good vision, and he's willing to run behind his pads when there's not a big play to be made. He had an 80% conversion rate on 3rd and 4 or less, and so he can get the short yardage for you. And he's a good pass blocker too. Like Tennessee runs their big spread scheme where they get your wide receivers all the way out to the sidelines. And that by necessity puts the running back in a lot of 6-man protections. And I thought he handled that really well. Now he's really small and I don't think he's going to survive a high workload, but the Eagles have Saquon Barkley. Nobody's getting a high workload, but I think he could be interesting out of the backfield in the passing game for, some snaps a game. He's just a guy that I'm intrigued by, and I think he would be a really interesting fit along with Saquon Barkley.
We would be all in on Dylan Sampson if this running back class wasn't so historic. It's so deep. It's so deep. It's crazy. Miss Chris says Kyle Kennard. Love Kyle Kennard. Always been a fan of his. Thoughts on Kevin Winston being drafted as safety number 1? Oh, well, I will say before 2024, he was well considered a first-round pick. And I know he did have his pro day, and he ran pretty well. So, yeah, he looks like a day 2 guy. That's definitely a very intriguing name. Can I give a handful of corners or defensive backs?
Sure.
Yeah, I have one too. Let's do it.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, that's fine. You probably don't have him. I have Dorian Strong out of Virginia Tech. He's very instinctive, quick. He GPS'd at 21 miles an hour. He shows elite awareness and cover skills. He uses the sideline against the receivers. He's physical. He's a ball hawk that plays well in the NFL because he's one of the few in college that actually turns his head around to look at the ball, which is something you don't see as much. He performed well. Another guy who performed really well down in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. He shined in the one-on-ones down there. And again, I put a lot of stock into the Senior Bowl. I think it's one of the better events. I thoroughly enjoy it more than I do the Combine. But he's a guy who I could see on day 3 in the 120-ish range of being a target because he has the versatility to play in a couple positions in the Eagles defense.
It makes me just all warm inside. People make fun of me when I talk Senior Bowl, and they're like, "You're such a nerd." I love the Senior Bowl. It's the best.
It's the best.
All right, I'm going to go cornerback. I know there's a chance maybe they look at Maxwell Hairston or Benjamin Morrison in the first round. I think that's definitely on the table. But let's talk some day 3 corners that could be competition for Keely Ringo, specifically on the outside. Leading off, Noah Williams, cornerback out of Cal. Noah Williams is terrific. He's a ball hawk. I think he fits the Eagles because he's a perimeter corner. He bench pressed 19 reps in the bench press event, had a 4.5 40, 33-plus inch vert, 10-foot broad jump. Raw athletic score of 8.32 out of 10. Not the best run defender, but size, ball production, coverage, developmental guy for sure, but has all the tools you're looking for to kind of start on the opposite Quinyon Mitchell. Next up, Zoff Frazier, cornerback out of UTSA. Another lanky 6'3", 189-pound kind of dude that really showed well in zone coverage. He's got JUCO All-American backgrounds, more of a straight line speed guy than a fluid hip kind of dude. But, man, his combine numbers were off the charts, 4.36 in the 40. He had a 10-yard split of 1.51, 4.26 in the 20-yard shuttle. Man, among all those are among the tops of the cornerbacks that tested. 9.28 raw athletic score. Developmental prospect, but, yeah, tools, fits the zone heavy defensive scheme for the Birds. Check him out. Donald Fortune, a cornerback out of South Carolina, is another name that I've been following. Nearly 1,500 snaps at outside corner, just 36 in the slot. So could be a potential candidate to battle Keely Ringo. Doesn't play a lot of press, but the Eagles rarely run press. And very good coverage guy. Very good coverage guy, elite traits. Day 3 guy, coach him up, profit, draft and stash kind of dude. And last but not least, Jacob Parrish out of Kansas State, a very good tackler, a guy that is a big-time developmental guy, but excels staying with receivers and man coverage, does a good job covering ground and zone. And I think all these guys are dudes that have CB1, CB2 potential down the road that can battle it out at CB2.
All right. So there is a whole list of names that you guys can keep an eye on. David, did you have anybody else that you wanted to mention, or are you good?
I'll give one shout out to safety at Temple since he played at Philly. He's a hard-hitting, tackling machine, sideline to sideline guy. He was the team captain in his first year there. He's physical run stopper, disciplined. Andreas Keaton. I followed him all year. I talked to him, I don't know, September or October, and I'll try to post the interview I did with him. But he was asked if he could speak to three people alive or dead, who would they be? And one of them was Brian Dawkins. So watch the interview. I'll post it later, but it's super cool. He's probably, a day 3 guy, somebody late in the draft, but he's got pretty good size, 6'2", 200 pounds, familiar with the field because he played. But yeah, he's a guy who I think, could be a 6th, 7th round guy maybe, if they're looking to fill in a safety position late in the draft.
All right. So there you have it, guys. Some thoughts on free agency, some thoughts on the question marks heading into the draft, and a whole bunch of names that you guys can go look up highlight videos for on YouTube while you're bored at work tomorrow or Thursday or Friday. Not that we would encourage that, but we know what happens. So that's going to about do it for this episode. Stay tuned. If you love the draft, in about 10 minutes, we're going to be going live talking offensive linemen, top 10 offensive line in the draft. And so that's one of my favorite shows of the year.
It's your Christmas.
Yeah, when we get to start talking offensive linemen, it's great. But before we get out of here, I'll throw it around the horn for final thoughts and plugs. Dives, you're up, man. Tell the people what you got going on, where they can find you.
Mr. Crackpot on X. I actually do a series on day 2 and day 3, guys, on the other channel, Party on Broad. So go check that out. I'm at like part 5 now, where I go over 5 guys that really interest me. I've got part 6 in the works, developing. Has my scouting reports, it has highlight reels, all in one. Go check that out. I'm also moving on to the NBA draft. I know we don't talk a lot of NBA on here, but I've got a Cooper Flagg scouting report in the works. Going to cover some top guys for the Sixers because I'm that much of a sociopath. But that's about it.
All right. Be sure you are following Dives on Twitter at Mr. Crockpot. He's got all kinds of stuff coming out. David, what about you, man? What do you have going on?
You can follow everything at PHL Eagle News or Philly Sports Network. I have a piece today. It's a 2025 Eagles mock draft. It's the only one you need to read. You don't need to read any others the rest of the year. It addresses every single need. They get the best linebacker in college football history in Bobby Boucher. They get kick returner and Forrest Gump. It is the ultimate draft, so check it out.
Yeah, be sure you go check that one out too, and follow along with all of David's other stuff. He is on Twitter or X or whatever it's called these days at PHL Eagle News. You can follow me on Twitter at Shanehalf NFL. I haven't been posting much lately, but I'm going to try to start posting some more stuff. Armchair Scouts coming up later this evening. I'm going to have Eagles X's and O's. Eric's going to come on and talk with me later this week about the draft. So keep it tuned to the Eagles Pinpool Network. We got a lot of shows coming your way as we ramp up to draft season, and we will catch you guys next Tuesday night for another episode of Birds of the Round Table. Go Birds.